Hello guys, once again it's Matt, and today we have another video. Thank you all the members, all the patrons. Make sure to subscribe and let's get into it, guys. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about the F-2, the Mitsubishi F-2, right? An aircraft that always appears on the forum, on the community in general. People always wanted it. Since the AJ was actually added, the F-16 AJ was added for Japan, people have been asking for this aircraft. And lately, it has appeared in some leaks that we don't know if it's true or not. But how realistic is it to expect this aircraft? Well, the short answer is no. It's not realistic to consider this aircraft to come at all. But before we get into why, I mean, the thing is that we don't know anything about anything, right? I mean, I honestly thought that it was almost impossible that we would receive the Su-27 and the F-15 last patch, and we got it. So they always try to surprise us, right? So even though, yes, it's a red flag to even that leak that I showed on the channel, I still think that it is possible, although very, very unlikely. But why is it unlikely? Why is it not really realistic to expect this aircraft? So let's talk about the performance of this thing, guys. A lot of people don't know exactly what the F-2 is, and yes, it is an F-16, kind. You know, at the end of the day, it is kind of an F-16, but the problem is that it is, as I say normally, an interpretation of an F-16 from what the Japanese government needed an F-16 to be. That's pretty much what it is. And especially, it was developed in the late 80s to the 90s, right? So they, of course, they used better technologies than the original F-16As, you know? So that's, of course, it's something that it just, like, it's obvious, right? One thing that you have to know for sure, this aircraft is, as I said, pretty much an F-16. There will be people that will say, no, it's not an F-16. There will be people that will say, oh, it is very much an F-16. It doesn't matter. The project came from an F-16. Okay, that's the main thing. It was built in Japan. That's the primary thing that the Japanese always want to do, right? And of course, they want to use their own specifications. So outside, like from outside, the aircraft looks very much like an F-16, but more or less because normally you see the aircraft from the side. You don't look at from above, for example, or below normally with the photos. And that's like where the main difference between the normal F-16s and the F-2 is, externally at least, right? The F-2 has a much bigger wing design, you know, making it a lot more maneuverable than the original F-16s. Is it more maneuverable than the A? Well, I don't know. I have to say that I'm not gonna go through with that, but at least more than the C variants, okay? More than the Block 40, 50, etc. And yes, it will turn more, but always remember, larger wings mean more drag, which means less speed, or normally, in the case of the wings, it means that it will lose more speed while turning normally. So expect that to be a kind of a main difference in the flight characteristic of the F-16. But imagine an F-16C with more capability of turning while losing a little bit more energy while doing the turn itself. This is going to be the main difference. On the engine side of things, it is using the same good old F110 engine made by GE, right? So it's a very, very good engine, 131 kilonewtons in general static power, you know, very similar to something that we have in the C variants. Like the weight is going to be a little bit increased, but not by much as well. It's like it's complicated because of course it is a larger aircraft technically, right? But the thing is that at the end of the day, it doesn't change much. I mean, it is, some sources claim like 1,000 kilograms, which is kind of a lot, but it depends on many instances. So just remember that it's going to be a little bit heavier, at least like 1/18th heavier, at least, right? So you will feel an aircraft that has basically the same engine as the F-16Cs, but with more like weight and with more wing, which means that it will accelerate a little bit slower and it will lose more energy while turning, at least in theory, for the game's sakes, you know. But at the end of the day, it's not a very big change. It will turn more after all, which is a very good thing. On the side of electronics, weapon systems, that's where I think the main like difference comes from the F-16 to the F-2. Of course, the F-2 is what the Japanese wanted it to be. So initially, you know, it would use something like a Sparrow and the AIM-9s that we already have, AIM-3s, etc. But of course, it could be upgraded to use the AIM-4, which is an equivalent to the AIM-120 missile for the US, okay? Another thing that you need to learn, and I'm gonna do a whole video about it, is that it uses an AESA radar instead of the normal mechanic scanned array radars, right? This radar means that it has a much quicker search time in the area that you are trying to search. Okay, so it's going to be near instant, and it's a very advanced radar. And that's where I think the problem is. The performance, as we talked about, is kind of similar to something like the Charlie version of the F-16, right? But with some differences, like extra weight, more turn, etc. that we already talked about. But when it comes to the radar, there isn't anything close to it that we have in the game right now. So it will be an aircraft that have a lot more power in the BVR arena, in the radar missile arena, unless they just add it with the Sparrow and just ignores everything else. But once everybody starts to get Fox 3 missiles, and once like we have these aircraft that will receive these missiles, and this thing receives the AIM-4, then I think it's where this thing will shine. Because, as I said, the performance, the flight performance is somewhat similar to other F-16s. Although it's different, it is kind of similar. But on the radar side of things, it's completely different. It has instantaneous, basically, detection, and that would mean that the aircraft could be a lot faster to choose a target and have a lot more situational awareness, being a lot more effective in the BVR arena. And that's where I think we have a problem. But we have a little thing that we need to talk about, that how meta is the BVR anyway? Like, it isn't the most meta thing ever. It isn't the thing that everybody does that works, right? It's made for a few people that like to do that, but you know, it's even then it's not 100% guaranteed that you will get kills, even with the best missiles of the game like the R-27ERs, right? So at the end of the day, the real improvement, the real deal about this aircraft is something that it's not really even like the most meta thing in the game, the most used thing even, you know? So is it too OP to be added? Well, to be honest, if you take a look closely and only add it with the Sparrows and then afterwards add the AIM-4s when everybody else has Fox 3s, I think it's going to be alright, and it's not going to be that OP. It's going to be just a very advanced F-16, probably the best F-16 in the game. But out of reach? Maybe not. Maybe not, you know. The only problem that I really see it is that although it is possible, it is still a step up from the aircraft that we have, and a step up that, let's be honest, Gaijin is not looking for right now. They already denied a lot of these aircraft that are 4+ generation. So an aircraft such as this, especially after the Japanese tech tree just got the F-15J, is highly unlikely. And it's just really unrealistic to expect. Is it going to be OP? No, I don't think it's going to be that OP. Yes, it's going to be, as I said, probably the best F-16 in the game. But it's still going to be limited to the Sparrow and to the AM-3, which are missiles that, to be honest, they are manageable to avoid, together with a flight performance that is similar to aircraft that we already have. So at the end of the day, it isn't as much as of a problem of being too OP, but more like the game doesn't need it right now. And at this instance, I just think that Gaijin will wait a little bit more to have it. And that's why I think that leak list that I actually shared has a major red flag, because the F-2 is just not really ready. Like, the game is not really ready for it, kinda. Or is it just not needed? And although Gaijin normally, they have exceptions, at the end of the day, I still think that they will remain without these aircraft for a little bit, but not by much. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to subscribe. Let me know in the comments what you want to see in the channel. Remember, I have a GTA secondary channel. And yeah, see you guys. Bye. Subscribe.